Good afternoon, honorable members. When we uh, suspended for lunch, the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador had reserved the floor.
Member from Southern Shores has an intervention today that I think is appropriate as well.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to thank the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador for allowing me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak to an issue of a circular that's been going around on social media, which suggests that there may have been some deaths on a ship at the Prince George Wharf today. Having checked with the persons responsible, I want to categorically deny that there's been any such deaths. There was an incident where someone took ill on the Mariner of the Seas. That person was visited by a physician. The physician was satisfied that the person did not even need to be hospitalized and was treated there on the ship. And so I want to say to the Bahamian public that there's been no such incident where 5 persons died on a ship at the Prince George Wharf and the ship had to be quarantined. I would also like to take this opportunity while I'm on my feet to say to persons who might be minded to do things like that, that there needs to be a degree of responsibility, at least to verify when they would have received such text messages, such WhatsApp messages, before going ahead and forwarding them, to attempt to verify with the various agencies that might know for certain, to avoid any kind of panic. And so I thank you, and again I state there's been no such deaths at our Prince George Wharf. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise once again and again express my continual appreciation to the fine people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, having given me this privilege to stand where I am today, be where I am today, to advance and promote the good of them in particular and the nation generally and as a whole. And as I stand as Speaker to address the repeal of the anti-terrorism bill that was passed in 2004, firstly, and subsequently amended twice, I think, in 2014 and 15. This is a bill, Speaker, that is for the purposes of domesticating obligations that we would have engaged by virtue of our signatory to various treaties, international treaties, and in this instance, treaties relating to terrorism. Mr. Speaker, you know, the question arises about this new phenomena. It's not really new, because terrorism has been existing from almost time immemorial. It's just that it's taken on a new feature, and it has evolved in its meaning over the many years. I mean, if we go back to the days of, if we go back to when Columbus discovered these fine islands, one can say acts of terrorism were perpetrated against the natives who were here. When we were talking about the spread of Christianity, one can say that terrorism might have been a mechanism engaged to bring heathens to the faith. It's just as how we look at it. And then, Mr. Speaker, in truth and in fact, it's taking on new meanings today because, truly, war is no more. What I mean by that, Mr. Speaker, war as we knew it, where nations were pitted against nations, they no longer exist. We have this new phenomenon where ideologies are being adopted and embraced by embraced by persons of the same nationality. So you have, for example, Trinidadians, as you would have heard, embracing the ideologies of the Al-Qaedas and the jihadists and the ISIS. And so today, war as we know it is no more. What we're having, Mr. Speaker, is what I call these acts of aggression by persons who are a bit more informed by ethnicity and religion. That's what's fueling it. And their extreme views of what either their race entitles them to or what their religion means to them and how they view other religions in that regard. And so the common denominator, nevertheless, in it all, is what I call man's inhumanity to man. It's the crime against humanity, genocides, and those type of offenses where it is considered a crime against humanity. And so countries have bound themselves today, recognizing that, look, it's not about each nation now, but it's rather against persons within our own community, joining with persons maybe in your state or my state and having these acts of aggression against us. And so these treaties have come about. Now, there are some comments about the first bill, and in effect, what the first bill was about. What the first bill did, Mr. Speaker, it really was directed at the money, because it still beats us as to how the terrorists and these terrorist organizations survive. And not only survive, but to have the kind of resources that they have. And the thought was you gotta follow the money to find out. And so the first bill that is now being repealed was basically to implement the United Nations Convention respecting the suppression of financing of terrorism. That was the object of the first bill. And as a part of that bill, it did in fact cover and domesticated all of the offenses that were contained in what I call related treaties. And that's when, and it's now defined as convention offenses. It was in the first bill as well. And so convention offenses were domesticated so that persons committing what is called a convention offense could have been tried and are extradited. And then, of course, we created the domestic offense by talking about other acts that may not have been contained in either of the treaties. I think there were 13 of them. I probably will address one or two of them as I go on. Any act that were not covered by those treaties was then covered locally by our own definition of terrorism, and you'll see in the initial bill, which is carried over in the new bill, it speaks to any other act that has the purpose, by its nature or context, to intimidate the public or to compel a government or an international organization to do or to refrain from doing any act. And that in itself, not as a standstill or standalone, because I recall the initial views on this, where it speaks to compelling a government to refrain from or not doing. We are trying to compel the government from not passing that unconscionable increase in VAT. We are trying to do it. In fact, I joined in the march, in the protest, right? And I say, I still have my corned beef from it, right? See, so Mr. Speaker, so we have to differentiate what I call lawful protests, right? And what this is. And so I recall very vividly the spirited exchanges we would have had around the cabinet table in respect to this. And we had to, so it was not a standalone. That act had to be accompanied, right, with what I call a causation, intending to cause death or serious harm. And so our protest was not to cause death or serious harm. Our protest was to compel the government not to pass the bill, right? And we weren't intending in any way to cause death or serious bodily harm, or to expose anyone to health or safety risks. And so, Mr. Speaker, and so those are the critical elements that one has to look at. And so I would have thought, sometimes, you see, the government has the carriage of these bills. And I listened very intently to the member for Mount Moriah, and he did, in fact, go through a number of the provisions of the bill. But the emphasis was more on the punishment. But I guess that's what police officers do. They ain't worrying about. They're not going to worry so much about the ingredients of the offense. They want to know, if you commit this, you're going to jail. I'm talking what I heard, man. I'm talking what I heard. I'm not criticizing you, but I commend you for having done, and so I wouldn't have to do it, right? But sometimes one ought to assist by indicating whether there's a paradigm shift from what was to what is going to be. And in this instance, what I can say is what in effect the new bill has done is to remove any doubt that what I call the convention offenses have not been domesticated, in the context that if I, as a Bahamian, in Bahamian waters or on land, if I were to commit any of these things, I may be excused. Or if I'm in another country as a Bahamian, would have committed these convention offenses, I may be excused if I find my way back home, having escaped from the territory from which I may have committed those offenses. And so the several provisions that are now set out in the bill really relates to what was initially only a schedule to the original bill. And yes, doubt could have arisen as to whether or not those specific offenses would have been domesticated. And so when we talk about some of the treaty offenses, you're talking about offenses committed on board an aircraft, for example. That's a convention that relates to offenses and certain acts committed on board an aircraft. You can see that they are being specifically set out here now. The unlawful seizure of an aircraft, suppression of unlawful acts against the safety of civil aviation, and those various offenses that are contained in those treaties. And so, Mr. Speaker, so when we look at what is now included, Part 2 speaks of what I call the WMD, the weapons of mass destruction. And what it relates to is basically if you're training, you're prohibited from being trained, unless, of course, you're in the armed forces. There's some exceptions. And you're going to develop weapons of mass destruction. You're going to use it, meaning the chemical or nuclear agents in respect to it. And, of course, prohibiting the financing of training, development, or use of what they call weapons of mass destruction. And, of course, that includes the chemical warfare and nuclear use. And then, Mr. Speaker, I spoke to the definition of the treaty. Then you have the treaty offenses, which are defined and set out in the various treaties. But I note that the new act, in fact, does elucidate on those treaties as they have become now domesticated in our law and embraces all of us. Huh? I didn't get to the resolution set, but again, they also, I think they touch on this. They also conform with the various resolutions of the UN Council that we are required to put into our law. And so, so I note I had several commentaries to make, but I see that a lot of my comments would have been cured by the suggested amendments to the bill. But there are one or two other. Where's my act? Yeah. There are one or two other matters I wish to draw to the side opposite attention. As I said, I see that there's various amendments to the bill already that has addressed many of my concerns. So I will not dwell into that, and I guess we will see those amendments when we go through the heads. But I want to draw attention to 6.4. I note that I pointed out earlier this morning, whilst on my feet, that there appears to be a duplication of paragraph 6.4 and section 7. And I trust that with the new 12, section 12, 6.4 and 12, it's a duplication and I trust that has been taken care of with the new set of amendments that you would have passed on to us. Okay, so that is taken care of. And then I'm concerned about section 13. You're deleting 5, which speaks to, I guess, what I call the searching of persons and ensuring that male officers wouldn't be searching female suspects. Right? Now that has been deleted. It's proposed that is being deleted. And it's being replaced by another section that concerns me. The new section 5 speaks that the powers, let's make sure that's the new one. The powers conferred by warrant. Sorry, that may not be a new section. Just let me look at my other bill here. Section 13(5). It would have been the old section 6. You're just deleting 5, but 6. So what is 5 now was the old 6. The powers conferred by warrant under this section shall only be exercisable if the warrant so provides in the presence of a police officer. I'm trying to understand what does that mean. If the police officer, let's say one police officer goes to a house with a search warrant, and if he delegates the power to search, I'm just wondering, because it's saying in the presence of police officers. Usually there'll be more than 2 or 3 officers. But what is the necessity of setting out that has to be done? Because the warrant is usually directed to the police officer to carry out the search, and not to him, and which means that he'll be present to carry it out, because he's carrying it out. Huh? Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand that. Yeah.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakro.
Thank you very much, member for Cat Island, Rumkins, and Salvador. Your observations are appreciated. What I should do is I should clarify so that when we go into committee, we'll take care of it on the slip road. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
Now, I also have some concerns about section 15. 50. 50. Huh? Yeah. That's what it is. Now, 50 subclause 1 speaks to the duty of a person to report a matter to the Commissioner of Police once they have reasonable grounds to suspect that funds or financial services are related to or to facilitate an offense under the Act. So that exposes the reporter, right? If I can talk on you, right? And then subclause 2 speaks to where information is received from a source from outside the Bahamas, that a person has committed or is alleged to have committed an offense, and that the person may be in the Bahamas. The Commissioner of Police shall take such measures as may be necessary to investigate the fact contained therein. There's no issues with those 2 paragraphs. I think it is what is contained in subclause 3. Subclause 3 speaks to the Commissioner of Police firstly taking that person found in protective custody. And the person that they're talking about here is the person identified in subclause 2. Now, why would you want to take someone into protective custody? Right? That person, having received information that that person has either committed an offense or has been alleged to have committed. He's not going to go in protective custody. You take him into custody. Now, you'll take him into custody, I would think. But they said protective. Huh? Right. Yeah, but it might be, right, it may be more appropriate for the person identified in subclause 1 to be taken into protective custody if it is necessary, rather than 2. So, I mean, I just put that for you to think about. Yeah, man. Yeah, you're going to arrest him. As the member for Anson asked, this becomes a domesticated, ordinary criminal matter now. So the police have locked him up, and the ordinary law takes its course. And so that is, then I note this question about of the transferring of detainees or person detained. I think it's section 56. I think. I only conditions for transfer of detained person. They seem to address 2 categories of persons. Persons for whom the Commissioner of Police may have obtained what I call a detention order, which could last 48 hours or up to 14 days. That's one category of person. The other is someone who is serving time. So the issue is the person who is serving time, and you're transferring that person serving time, and whether or not that may not have, we may have some issues in relation to the what's that act called now? The transfer of not the extradition, the transfer of prisoner detained, the Transfer of Offenders Act. If someone is here, you have this treaty where a person, if he's serving time here, he could serve, right, and there are certain, protocols that has to be in place in each of the jurisdictions and the treaty that forms the basis, the underlying basis for that act. I'm wondering whether it aligns with the legal theory that visits Section 56. Sounds good. You say something. I just cannot.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for North Abaco.
As you, of course, fully appreciate, and I sit at the feet of Gamelia when I listen to you explicate the historical unfolding of terrorism and the rationale and logics behind what we do in this place today. Appreciate, coming from a law enforcement background like myself and the minister, a material witness that might be in custody who has information relevant to another country that they may wish to question him or her on. And I think this may be referencing that type of individual who falls outside of the regular transport treaty operations. I commend that for your consideration.
I appreciate the material witness, but there are mechanisms to which you can get evidence. And there are many. You could do it, and the mechanism to get evidence. Right? Huh? No, we don't talk about water boy. No, I'm talking. If the material witness. Yeah, no, I know what I'm saying. No, it's not contradictory at all. All I'm saying is that a person who is in custody serving time, having gone through our legal system, having been sentenced and is serving time in the Bahamas, this is allowing you to transfer him under these. And the question is, I'm asking, is whether or not consideration was given to how that is impacted, how it impacts back. For example, if someone is serving time, he's serving 25 years, 15 years, right? And he serves, say, 5 years of that time. Right? He's going to be transferred to another country. not having completed his term here, what then is the effect of the balance of his term in connection with this transfer? No, it changes. It changes because he's not being transferred under the transfer. No, not extradition, not extra. Transfer of Offenders Act. See, there's something called Transfer of Offenders Act, which obligates the receiving country state to let him serve his time there. But I'm saying no. There's no. What I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that unless I raise the question, I don't have the answer, and I raise it because I have had dealings with the Transfer of Offenders Act. I am familiar with the extradition processes, and there could be some challenges because one of the things that under this section is that the person is required to agree to go. You can't force him to go. He has to agree to go. And if I have 25 years ahead of me, and I say I want to go to the States because I have information to give them.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Mount Moriah.
I understand exactly where the member from Cat Island and Rumkey, Sir Salvador, is coming from, and there is a Transfer of Offenders Act, and I don't think that as a government that the government will contravene the law to accommodate someone else, and so I think the member can be assured that that certainly will be taken into consideration because it is law. Yeah.
I know that
Let's cure it with your experience. Let's cure it.
Yeah. I don't know yet. See, I don't know the answer because I didn't have the opportunity to. I did not have the opportunity to refresh. I didn't have the opportunity to refresh my mind on the Transfer of Offenders Act. It's just that it instinctively I just wondered what could I know that the government will follow the law in respect to what they do. Only if that person is wanted. A person who's detained, person in custody or detained may not be wanted. He may just be needed to give, yeah. And then he see the mischief is not with the government, the mischief is the person who is detained. So, Mr. Speaker, we support the bill, subject to those observations that well, not subject, but the observations that have made in respect to it is something that is necessary because we are no longer in this world by itself, or we could exist by itself as a country, and it is all part of the global strategy to address the new phenomena of war, which don't find itself pitting countries against countries, but rather ideologies banding together to upset ideologies. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I support. See. You want me? I'll have to go back to the Gallic. See, I'll have to go back to my Gallic war days. Coming back into my Latin.
As many, chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise just to give a support to what the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador has explicated on our behalf. And let me begin at the outset as to say that I think we are all painfully aware of activities, terrorist activities, and the impact it has on innocent persons globally, historically over the many, many, many years, and becoming almost more of a trend in recent times and a reality now such that our legislation must be revised to respond and to accommodate responses to this increasing phenomena that we are seeing globally. And so I just want to say that, but I wanted to just highlight two issues, and one is the two issues are freedom of speech, and the other is the liberty of the subject. And this legislation impacts, as does other legislation, these two fundamental principles. And these principles are fundamental, and I know that sometimes that we face challenges in our reality. And history has shown that states have responded in a way that can now, in hindsight, be described as excessive. We saw it in Guantanamo Bay. People held for years and years and years and years without any recourse. Well, I heard some comment about waterboarding, and we saw it with the Irish, the IRA, and the blanket detention of individuals, the rounding up and the blanket detention. And so I think there are enough lessons in history to tell us that responses must be fine-tuned, intelligent, targeted, and but at the same time preserves these fundamental principles. And on those fundamental principles, I want to put that on the table and to hold them up high, because I think sometimes we believe these have no value, or these have limited value when you look at the larger issue or the issue of national security. There is a tendency I hear in dialogue, not just here, but other countries, where we are more willing to sublimate or subjugate those principles to that objective. And there has to be a balance in this effort. And so I want to begin by upholding these principles, because, as they say, he who feels it knows it. There cannot be anything worse than an individual or a group of individuals whose liberty or their right to freedom of speech has been curtailed. No, has been curtailed. No. Well, that's good. When you speak, you can speak to it. No, I know. Listen, I'm trying to finish my contribution. But I wonder if North Africa would be so good to allow Engliston to speak in the Parliament. But don't worry about that. You can speak when you wish. But I am speaking when I'm expressing myself. No, I'm not yielding. You're interrupting me now. Mr. Speaker, I want you to assist me with the member. Allow me to finish my presentation. And so I want to uphold today the principles of our liberties, which are preserved in our Constitution. And I want to give them, in my own right, their utmost and absolute value in our country and as it relates to every individual. Now, I want to refer to a couple provisions in this relating to those same issues, that of the liberty of the individual and that of freedom of speech. The member for Cat Island, and I'm sorry that the member for North Abaco felt inspired to interrupt. Don't, yeah, you're interrupting. No. Oh, Lord. We know you know this very well, you know. Okay, but other people would like to contribute. We know you know it very well. Thank you. And so, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members.
Jesus, ridiculous, huh?
Please speak to the chair.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm wondering if the member, I'm wondering, I could, I tell you what, Speaker, I could defer my presentation, let North Abaco do his, and I can do mine afterwards, Mr. Speaker.
Carry on, honorable member.
Thank you, Speaker. And so I want to reiterate, I want to uphold those principles about the liberty of the individual, and I say that now even within our current context. The issue of how individuals are stopped and searched, how homes are entered into, especially when we're faced with, for example, an increase in crime. We have to ensure that there's always the balance between the liberty of the individual and the interest of national security, which is a collective interest. On the issue of this particular legislation, there are a couple provisions I want to refer to. And one is the right to detention. We know it's criminalized. I've been about 30 years plus. We know that this is being criminalized in this legislation. But what is interesting about this particular, it's not interesting. It's a provision which allows for an ex parte, which means that the court is approached by the Director of Public Prosecutions or ex parte to a judge for a detention order. So it's ex parte. Initially, it is for 48 hours, and it can be extended on multiple occasions up to a maximum of 14 days or 2 weeks. And so I wanted to to encourage whether through rules, I believe this allows for rules. I believe the legislation provides, does it have for rules? Because it's not in the legislation, that there be, that you see, let me tell you what I'm concerned about. That someone is arrested or someone is detained pursuant to this provision. The judge is approached on an ex parte basis, which means they're hearing one side. No problem. We have other examples of that in our law. But for up to 14 days, you could be cloistered without any, it appears, any rights accompanying this cloistered position. I look, for example, at clause 54. Let me see the 54. Clause 54 gives you, sorry, let me just find it. Clause 54 speaks to the rights of an offender. And it says that a person whom measures referred to in section 50, clause 50, subsection 2, or clause 50, subsection 3. And it says what the rights of that person are in those circumstances. But as you heard the member for Cat Island, that does not apply to the person who is being detained for up to 14 days on an ex parte basis. And so I want to seriously put on the table for this administration that in the implementation of this, that we put in place safeguards so that if you do it through regulations, do it through regulations that allows, for example, the right to access legal counsel during this period. And, sorry. Listen, Speaker, I know the Constitution requires, it says subject to the law, and this is the law. Go read. Do you have the Constitution here? Let me help this member. It's subject to, no. Listen, do you want to speak or not? Well, let me speak. I speak for Angliston, okay? And don't interrupt. It's discourteous to interrupt. It's discourteous. We know we have a Constitution, but this is saying that you can be held up to 14 days. Okay, Mr. Speaker? Okay. Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker?
Honorable members,
Speaker, are you
the member
running
for
North
Angerson
Abaco?
has the floor. Honorable member for
Speaker,
Angerson.
I'm appalled at North Abaco. I understand he says he's an expert. We appreciate his expertise. We appreciate that you have this superior training. But I speak for the people of Angliston. And this legislation puts in place no protections for a person who is held in custody for up to 14 days on an ex parte basis, Speaker. And furthermore, Speaker, I want to recommend that the regulations also help to guide a judge in assessing whether or not and in what circumstances an extension should be made in these circumstances. For example, for the state to show that it is diligently pursuing whatever it is pursuing, so that people are not held for extended periods of time, Speaker. Sorry?
Honorable members.
I have confidence in the judiciary. That's not the issue. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I would have hoped to have seen, and just for North Abaco's benefit, I'd recommend that he read the jurisprudence on this issue. There's much academic writings on this issue, in terms of how people are being detained and what protections should be in place for persons who are held in custody, Mr. Speaker, under these provisions, under these type provisions, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the clause 22, which deals with clause 22, which deals with incitement, promotion, or solicitation of property for the commission of terrorist acts. And it says, every person who knowingly incites or promotes the commission of a terrorist act, incites or promotes membership in a terrorist group, or solicits property for the benefit of a terrorist group or for the commission of a terrorist act, commits an offense and is liable on conviction on information to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 25 years. And I want to refer North Abaco, because he is the expert, to the Johannesburg principles. And I want to refer him to that. And the just for those who don't know, because I'm sure he knows, the Johannesburg principle.
Honorable member,
Sorry,
please, please.
Speaker, please now, Mr. Speaker.
I'm saying I don't think it's necessary.
No, Mr. Speaker, really, Mr. Speaker, I've been trying to give my presentation interrupted all the way through, but now I'm responding. It's problematic. No problem, Mr. Speaker.
It's not problematic.
No problem, Mr.
It's not
Speaker. I
problematic,
understand,
honorable
Mr.
member.
Speaker. No problem. No problem, Mr. Speaker. No, Mr. Speaker, you're allowing a lot, but no problem, Speaker. I don't have a problem, Speaker. I've been in here now 13 months, 14 months. I have no problem, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to continue to move. Johannesburg principles, Mr. Speaker, speaks to, it's a group of experts from around the world, and they looked at restrictions on freedom of expression in the name of national security. They talk about similar provisions. These are not new provisions. These are duplicated throughout the world. And in the United Kingdom, they're having a raging debate all the time. In fact, there was a bill that was knocked down by the House of Lords. So this is, you know, I know people believe they have the view, but I have a view too, Mr. Speaker. And what they say here, Mr. Speaker, is that that restrictions on freedom of expression in the name of national security may be imposed only where the speech was intended to incite imminent violence and there is a direct and immediate connection between the expression and the likelihood of or occurrence of such violence. And it says expression may be punished as a threat to national security only if, this is what they recommend. These are a group of considered persons, and I think it's been adopted by the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of opinion and expression. But what they say is that expression may be punished as a threat to national security only if a government can demonstrate that A, the expression is intended to incite imminent violence, B, it is likely to incite such violence, so there's a causal connection, and C, or nexus, there is a direct and immediate connection between the expression and the likelihood or occurrence of such violence. And it goes on to further, the test has been endorsed by the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of opinion and expression and has often been recommended to states for their consideration by the UN Commission on Human Rights in its annual resolutions on freedom of expression since 1996. And so I want to highlight those two issues. One is that the period of detention, up to 14 days, that the law is explicit as to the rights of that individual while they're being detained on an ex parte basis, such that has been provided for in this legislation in clause 54, and it's called rights of an offender. But we don't have anything that talks about the rights of the detainee. And I would like the rules to indicate what the rights of a detainee is. Because, on that issue, on the issue of the free speech, or the speech issue, the inciting speech, I think that we have to be very careful that the language of that is, or that the meaning of that, the legal meaning of that is tightly construed so that people who express themselves, and trust me, some people have radical views, and that's their right. They have radical views, and that's their right. Yes, they have radical views, and that's their right. And we have to be very careful that the line between being able to express different radical views and that where you are actually saying it has the effect of inciting violence, there is an actual causal connection or likelihood of that connection. Sorry. And so, well, did you just hear what I said just now? Yeah, obviously you didn't. It's amazing what happened to you over there in North Africa. Amazing. Oh, sorry? What's that, the Yes, the connection, no, that's the point I just read. Let me read it again. Because I heard the members talk about you have no right to incite violence. No, you don't. But what this is saying is, though, you have to show that that is what is happening. It's inciting violence, or has the likelihood to incite violence. And so I would invite the member for North Abaco, I know he's an expert in this, to apprise himself of the Johannesburg principles and to see what the extensive, which has been adopted by the UN Rapporteur on free speech, to have a view, look at that and see how it will help to enlighten him in his views on this issue. Thank you. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me just say, in the Parliament, I know for myself, I believe I was elected to speak for the people I represent. I know they don't expect me to sit in this Parliament and, as I indicated to someone the other day, engage in a tea party. That's not why I'm here. I am here, if I have strong views on something, somebody may feel it's negative or whatever, but Speaker, I have to speak in accordance with what I believe is in the interest of the people I represent. And so I just want to ensure, and I want to invite all of those on the other side who are not familiar to have a look at the jurisprudence and the academic research and the writings on this very issue, particularly in the United Kingdom, and to see the controversy surrounding similar type provisions. Now, I noticed that, so what I'm saying is that in the rules, and I am assuming rules will come, that we do all that we can to tighten up where there might be gaps, to ensure that in detention, for up to 14 days, you will have rights, your rights will be expressed in this legislation, as it is for someone who's an offender. It appears as if the offender in this legislation has more rights than a detainee. And if that is the case, something is wrong with that picture, because you have not been convicted. Well, there is a provision called the rights of the offender. No offender. That's clause 54. Clause 54. Yeah. Yeah, clause 54, rights of an offender. Oh, they can put accused? Okay. Okay. Sorry? Right. 14 days, up to 14 days, and that there are rules. Sorry? Say it again, 14 days, what? No. Listen, I invite you to go and look at the dialogue surrounding these type provisions, so you'll know. Yes, this is the Bahamas, and we don't have lesser standards than anyone else. Bahamians like freedom too, Bahamians love their freedom, love our freedom. We love our freedom of speech. So, we know it's the Bahamas. Thank you for reminding us, and so we expect the highest standards in our country. And so, Mr. Speaker, that is it in a nutshell. I just wanted to highlight the tightening of the provisions in relation to those two issues. They're very serious. I hear a lot of laughter in here, but they're very serious provisions. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, you don't know it until you feel it, where you've been deprived of your liberty or constrained of your freedoms, and then you understand the value, the beauty, and the meaning of these freedoms, Mr. Speaker. And we have to ensure that our law is clear in terms of continuing to strike that balance between our national security and the preservation of our fundamental rights as citizens and as human beings, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, thank you. That would be the contribution of Angliston on this matter.
Thank you, honorable member. As many? As many? Chair recognizes the honorable member for Yamakraw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to close the debate on the Anti-Terrorism Bill 2018. I would like to commend the government led by the Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis for laying this bill. I'd also like to commend the side opposite for their unequivocal support of this bill. I gleaned a lot from what the Honorable Member for Angliston said in her contributions. And I just want to underscore that in drafting these types of legislation, she's correct when she says that there's been international torrid debates on civil liberties as it relates to how we strike a balance between constitutional rights, national security, and the rights of the state. But in going through this exercise, Mr. Speaker, we were guided by the Constitution, but one of the things that stuck with me is some writings by Lord Tom Bingham, who's a noted writer and legal luminary on the issue of the rule of law. And one of the areas he wrote on is terrorism and the law. And it was a very interesting quote that, and I can't quote it obviously verbatim, but he looked at the atrocities that were conducted against persons in Hitler's Germany. And he also looked at the inhumane treatment of persons in South Africa. And then he looked at how we tried our best to eradicate the world of these insidious, nasty attitudes, and as the member for Cat Island say, strikes against humanity. But what he says is that in an attempt to fight what we call evil, we must not allow ourselves to lose hold of the main objective. And to be, that's right. Absolutely. And we must not become, in the process, that which we despise. And so, Mr. Speaker, I know that I speak for this side and the side opposite when we say we despise anything that would toward the freedom of expression. We despise anything that would unjustly take away someone's liberty. So in the words of Lord Bingham, we are certain that in drafting this legislation that we're going to do everything that is possible following the rule of law to protect the rights and freedoms of everybody. And I heard the member for Angliston when she says 14 days. You go before a court, and the court will determine whether or not it's an hour, a day, 2 days, 5 days, or whether or not you should not be held at all. And so this, what runs through this bill is the requirement by law to go to those persons who are the protectors of those fundamental rights, for those individuals, to arbitrate on them and determine whether or not it is lawful and just for someone's liberty to be taken and or for someone's ability to communicate to be hampered in any way. And so, Mr. Speaker, again, I thank the side opposite for, and I think I'm not wrong when I say for unequivocally supporting this timely and contemporary piece of legislation. And I said the side opposite. That's everybody.
Erudite explanation of the historical context in which we find ourselves.
Thank you very much. And I thank the government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. As many honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to criminalize terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, the financing of terrorism, and proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, to provide for the detention, prevention, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of activities and the confiscation, forfeiture, and seizure of assets of those involved in such activities and related matters. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to criminalize terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, the financing of terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, to provide for the detection, prevention, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of such activities, and the confiscation, forfeiture, and seizure of assets of those involved in such activities and for related matters.
For the second reading and committal of bills. Committee of the whole House.
Mr. Speaker, I do move that the House resolves itself into Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker in the chair.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that this honorable House resolve itself into a Committee of the whole House with the Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Committee of the whole House in the chair. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The House will now resolve itself into a Committee of the whole House with the Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Committee of the whole House in the chair.
I need the chair. Mike, Golden Gates tried to take your job. Your job was in jeopardy.
Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor will remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The long title of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the short title and commencement be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor will remain. The chair recognizes the member for.
No. It is. We're changing.
Being moved and seconded that the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The short title and commencement of the bill is agreed.
Listen, no. He's start on. Mr. Chairman.
May,
The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
may it please you, Mr. Chairman, I rise and move that Clause 1 be amended in the following terms. In the head note, delete the words "and commencement" in Clause 1.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that clause 1 of the bill be amended.
That's right.
As many. Any members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 1 of the bill is agreed. as amended.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yeah.
The 11th page, that's what we're going to. Yes. All of them. Mr. Chairman, I do now move that clause 2 be agreed. Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 2 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamoussoukro.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 2 be amended in the following terms. In clause 1, A,
Subclause.
in subclause 1, A, in subparagraph B of the definition of bearer negotiable instruments, delete the word and substitute the word or. B, delete the definition of entity and substitute as follows. Entity means two or more persons, howsoever style, group, cell, unincorporated association, organization, or similar body acting together. C, delete the definition of legal entity and substitute as follows. Legal entity means a body corporate, foundation, trust, partnership, fund, or any other entity. D, in subparagraph D of the definition of terrorist, delete the word terrorist and substitute the word terrorist. In E, in the definition of terrorist organization, insert immediately after the word organization the words group or entity.
He's done.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, he's done. Someone second.
Been moved and seconded that clause 2 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 2 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 3 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise.
Clause 3 is agreed.
Clause 3 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 4 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 4 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamoussoukro.
Move that clause 4 be amended as follows. In the definition of A, to acquire an object, insert immediately after the word gift the words or obtain possession of it by any other means. B, to dispose of an object, insert immediately after the word lend it the words abandon it.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 4 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 4 of the bill is agreed as amended. As many.
Boy, you all listen to Dean in one time.
Five.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 5 now be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second
It's been moved that clause 5 of the bill be agreed. As many members, the chair recognizes the member for Yamoussoukro.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 5 be amended in the following terms. A, in subclause 1B, insert immediately before the word receives the word willfully. In subclause 1C, insert immediately after the word receive the words or provide.
Being moved and seconded that clause 5 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 5 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 6 be agreed.
that. I second that, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 6. The chair recognizes the member for Yamoussoukro.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 6 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1, delete the word and as it appears after the word commits and substitute the word and. B, delete subclause 2. and- That's it, right? You have the right one.
Second.
Once.
Okay. B, delete subclause 2 and substitute as follows. 2, a person who transfers any biological agent or toxin to another person or enters into an agreement to do so, or B, makes arrangements under which another person transfers any biological agent or toxin or enters into an agreement with a third person to do so, if the biological agent or toxin is likely to be kept or used, whether by the transferee or any other person, otherwise than for what's that? Prophylactic, protective, or other peaceful purpose, and he knows or has reason to suspect that is the case, commits an offense. C, delete subclause 4 and renumber the existing subclause 5 as 4. D, delete existing subclause 6 and substitute as follows. 5, for the purpose of this section, biological agent means any microbe, including bacterium, virus, fungus, or other microorganism, whether arising naturally or as a result of human manipulation. Crave your indulgence. Toxin means a poison or plant or animal origin, especially one produced by or derived from microorganisms and acting as an antigen in the body.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 6 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 6 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Say that again? No, no. No.
Chair recognizes Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 7 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 7 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, the chair recognizes the member for Yamakro.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that subclause 7 be amended in the following terms. In A, paragraph A of subclause 2, insert immediately after the word he, the words knowingly. B, paragraph B of subclause 2, insert immediately before the word facilitates the word he, and subclause C. C, subclause 5, delete the word taken and substitute the words commenced in the Bahamas.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 7 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 7 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 8 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 8 of the bill be agreed. Many members, the
Mr.
chair
Speaker.
recognizes the member for Yamakro.
I rise and move that subclause 8 be amended in the following terms. In A, paragraph A of subclause 1, insert immediately after the word causes the words or attempts to cause. B, subclause 2, delete the words and figures, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, and substitute words and figures A, B, and C, respectively. C, paragraph A of subclause 3, delete the words under circumstances which indicate the credibility of the threat. D, paragraph B of subclause 3, delete the words by threat under circumstances which indicate the credibility of the threat and substitute the word which indicate the credibility of the threat. And E, paragraph A of subclause 4, insert immediately before the word facilitates the word knowingly.
Being moved and seconded that clause 8 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 8, the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 9 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 9 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 9 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 10 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second
It's being moved and seconded that clause 10 of the bill be agreed. Many members. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that subclause 10 be amended in the following terms. A, in subclause 1, delete the figure 6. B, in subclause 2, A, delete the words the minister may and substitute the words the National Security Council may. 2, in paragraph A, delete the figure 6. C, in subclause 3, delete the figure 6.
Being moved and seconded that clause 10 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 10 of the bill is agreed as amended. Chair recognizes the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
When you look at section 6,
Section 6?
yes,
Going back to section 6.
yeah.
If you look at the clarity, it's already being passed, moved and passed.
Huh?
If you look at the clarity, it's already being.
Well, maybe if you look at 10, you'll see why I asked to go back to 6.
10?
You just passed.
If you look
10
at
too.
section 6, if you look at
Section
section 10, perhaps you'll see why I'm asking about 6. You're saying
I'm just
because 10 speaks to 6. That's why I'm referring you back.
carry on. Get out.
Thank you. And it's just to make sure we doing it, be clear what we're doing, Speaker, because section 6 speaks about the restrictions on the development of certain biological weapons and toxins. Then it says, subject to sections 10 and 11.
Subsection 6, paragraph 1.
Yeah, it says subject to sections 10 and 11. And then 10 and 11 speaks to exceptions. But it deletes
Exceptions and defenses.
exceptions, right? It deletes section 6 from those, from,
Isn't 6 the one that was repetitive?
no.
No?
No, well,
6 and 7?
6.4 was.
Or 6.4?
Clause 4 was. I just want to make sure you,
Maybe it's intended to be in.
yeah. See, it seemed to be that you leave the 6 in because you're saying subject to sections 10 and 11. But then you leave. Now, in respect to, when you go to 11, it should remain because 6 refers you to 11. And in 10, and I do note that 10.2 and 10.3 still keeps section 6.
Yeah.
But it deletes it.
10.1 and 10.3 keep section 6, but it's being.
No, 10.2, 10.2, 10.3 keeps section 6.
But it's deleted
But it's
one.
deleted from subclause 1.
Yeah.
And then section 11, when you get to it, you see it deletes 6
Six
again.
again. Yeah.
And when you go back to 6, it is whatever happens is still subject to those provisions. So there's some challenge.
Yeah. Thank you very much, member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador. We'll review it. We're always grateful for your kind assistance, and if necessary, take care of it on the slip rule. Thank you very much.
Slip rule, okay.
Yes, yes.
Members, I just,
It's more, I'll take that.
All right.
just for clarity, members, I know we went through this before. The chair would appreciate is, as we go through the sections, if he would address the issues as we go through them, because it's kind of, I don't know, I'm guided by my clerk, but if we've already went through it past the provision, go back, I think it's, no, it wasn't rise with section 6, let me talk about section 10, and section 10, 6 and 10 was already passed. But we got, I'm not saying that for any long discussion, Cat Island.
I only went back.
Because we do appreciate your interventions. I'm just saying, you know, just, the chair recognizes the member for, as many. The chair recognizes, oh, we didn't put it, sorry. It's being moved and seconded that clause 10 of the bill be agreed as amended. Thought we did. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 10 of the bill is amended as agreed. Thought we already did.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 11 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I do second.
Being moved and seconded that clause 11, the chair recognizes the member for Yamakwa.
I rise and move that clause 11 be amended in the following terms. A, in subclause 1, delete the figure 6, and B, in subclause 2, insert immediately after the word fact, the word where.
Being moved and seconded that clause 11 of the bill be amended. It's been moved and seconded that clause 11 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 11 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 12 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Being moved and seconded that clause 12 of the bill be agreed. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 12 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 13 be agreed.
Being,
Second that, Mr. Chair.
it's being moved and seconded that clause 13 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakwa.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 13 be amended in the following terms. A, subclause 1, insert immediately after the word officer, the word reasonable. And B, delete subclause 5 and renumber subclause 6, 7, and 8 as 5, 6, and 7 respectively. C, in the new subclause 7, delete the words subsection 7 and substitute the words subsection 6.
Being moved and seconded that clause 13 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 13 of the bill is agreed as amended. Chair recognizes the member for Bambutown.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 14 be agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Being moved and seconded that clause 14 agreed. The chair recognizes the members for Yamakwa.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I rise and move the subclause 14 be amended in the following terms. In A, subclause 1B2, insert immediately after subclause EE the following new subparagraph, FF. Cybercrime resulting in any offense under this Act. B, in the concluding paragraph of subclause 1, delete the word shall and substitute the word may. And C, in the concluding paragraph of subclause 2, delete the word shall and substitute the word may.
Being moved and seconded, clause 14 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing would rise. Clause 14 of the bill is agreed as amended. Chair recognizes the member for Bambutown.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 15 be now agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 15 of the bill be. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I rise and move that subclause 15 be amended in the following terms. A, paragraph C of subclause 1, delete the words and the, and substitute the words and at that. B, subclause 3, insert immediately after the words fine of the words up to. And C, subclause 4, insert immediately after the words fine of the words up to. D, subclause 5, delete the word secretary.
Being moved and seconded that clause 15 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 15 of the bill is agreed as amended. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I do now move that clauses 16 through 19 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 16 through 19 be agreed. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 16 through 19 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do now move that clause 20 be agreed.
Do I have a seconder? It's being moved and seconded that clause 20 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 20 be amended in the following terms. Delete the words every person who knowingly agrees to provide training or instruction or provide training or instruction, and substitute the words every person who agrees knowingly to provide training to persons or instructions or reasonably suspected of being a member of a terrorist group or preparing to engage in a terrorist group or provides training or instruction.
Being moved and seconded that clause 20 of the bill be agreed as amended. Many members in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 20 of the bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I do now move that clauses 21 and 22 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair. It's being moved and seconded that clause 21 through 22 be agreed. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 21 through 22 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 23 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair. Being moved and seconded that clause 23 the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 23 be amended in the following terms. A, paragraph B, insert immediately after the word vehicle the words who knowingly permits the motor vehicle to be used. B, paragraph C, delete the words or master of a vessel or the owner, charterer, leasee, or operator, agent.
Being moved and seconded that clause 23 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 23 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 24 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair. It's being moved and seconded that clause 24 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 24 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1, insert immediately after the word travel the words into or outside of the Bahamas.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 24 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 24 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clauses 25 and 26 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair. It's been moved and seconded that clause 25 and 26 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 25 and 26 of the bill is agreed. As many. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 27 be agreed.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 27 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakura.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 27 be amended in the following terms. A, paragraph C, delete the words which is likely to endanger the safe navigation of the ship. B, paragraph D, delete the words, which endangers or is likely to endanger the safe navigation of the ship. C, paragraph E, delete the words, if such act is likely to endanger the safe navigation of the ship. D, paragraph F, delete the words, thereby endangering the safe navigation of the ship. And E, in subparagraph 2 of paragraph F, delete the words, to the sentence in accordance with the penalty prescribed for the offense, and substitute the words, to the sentence of life imprisonment.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 27 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 27 of the bill is agreed as amended. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 28 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 28 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 28 be amended in the following terms. A, delete subclause 1 and substitute as follows. 1. A person who unlawfully and intentionally delivers, places, discharges, or detonates an explosive or other lethal device into or against a place of public use, a state facility, a government means of transport, a public transport, just a public transport, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Facility, yeah. Facility, a public transportation system, or any infrastructure facility. A, with the intent to cause death or serious bodily injury, or B, with the intent to cause extensive damage to or destruction of the place, facility, or system, where the destruction results in or is likely to result in major economic loss, commits an offense and is liable on conviction, on indictment, to imprisonment for life. B, subclause 2, delete the words estate and substitute the words the Bahamas.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 28 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 28 of the bill is agreed as amended. There's another amendment sheet. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 29 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 29 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 29 be amended in the following terms. In A, subclause 2, in paragraph 8, delete the words sentence in accordance with the prescribed for the offense, and substitute the words to a sentence of death. 2, in paragraph B, delete the word 10 and substitute the word 20. B, subclause 3, 1, in paragraph A, insert immediately before the word internationally the word accommodation of. 2, delete the word 10 and substitute the word 20. C, delete subclause 4 and renumber existing subclause 5, 6, 7, and 8 as subclause 4, 5, 6, and 7, respectively.
Second.
Being moved and seconded that clause 29 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 29 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 30 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 30 of the bill be agreed. As many members, many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 30 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 31 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 31 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that subclause 31 be amended in the following terms. Delete subclause 1 and substitute the following. 1, A person who unlawfully and intentionally attempts to acquire or possesses nuclear material, or designs or manufacture or possesses a device, or attempts to manufacture or acquire a device with the intent A, to cause death or serious bodily injury, or B, to cause damage to property or the environment, commits an offense.
It's being moved and seconded that Clause 31 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 31 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clauses 32 through 34 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 32 through 34 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 32 through 34 of the bill is agreed. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 35 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 35 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 35 be amended in the following terms. In concluding paragraph of subclause 2, delete the words, or that he or she has not taken part in the activities of that entity after it became a terrorist group, and substitute the words, and that he was unaware of any change of that entity into a terrorist group or organization.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 35 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 35 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 36 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 36 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 36 of the bill is agreed. As many. Chair recognizes a member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clause 37 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 37 of the bill be agreed. As many. Chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move the clause 37 be amended in the following terms. Delete subclause 2 and substitute the following. 2. In this section, meaning means a virtual, physical, congress, or interaction between two or more persons, whether or not the public are admitted.
It's been moved and seconded that Clause 37 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 37 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move that clauses 38 through 39 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and seconded that Clause 38 through 39 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 38 through 39 of the bill is agreed. As many. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chairman, I do move that clause 40 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 40 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 40 be amended in the following terms. Insert immediately after the word dollars the words where no penalty is otherwise presented.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 40 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. The chair recognizes the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I just wondered whether you want to fix the term for imprisonment. Just said imprisonment without a term. You have a fixed sum of 5 million. And so what would be the term? So it'd be 25 years. But I think where I saw 5 million plus 40. Yeah, because I think that there should be where you have 5 million.
All right. We'll take care of it on the slip road. We'll take care. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yes. He doesn't have a...
It's being moved and seconded that clause 40 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise.
imprisonment.
Clause 40 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Okay, fine. But what the imprisonment is.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 41 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 41 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 41 be amended in the following terms. In paragraph B, insert immediately after the words have been the words or may be capable of being.
Second, Mr. Chair.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 41 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 41 of the bill is agreed as amended. As many. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 42 through 44 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 42 through 44 be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 42 through 44 of the bill is agreed. As many. Chair recognizes the member for Bamboo Town. I know.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 45 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 45 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 45 be amended in the following terms. A, subclause 1B, immediately after the word A, insert the words designated or. B, subclause 3, Roman numeral 3, insert immediately after the word with the words or in respect of. C, subclause 4B, delete the word disposing and substitute the word attesting. D, subclause 13, delete paragraph B and substitute as follows. B, in the Gazette and in 2 newspapers of general in circulation in the Bahamas. E, subclause 17, 1, Roman numeral 1, delete the words subsection 7 and substitute the word subsection 6. Roman numeral 2, delete paragraph A and B and renumber paragraph C and D as paragraph A and B respectively. F, delete subclause 19 and renumber subclauses 20, 21, and 22 as 19, 20, and 21 respectively. G, in the renumbered subclause 21, delete the subsection 20 and substitute subsection 19.
Being moved and seconded that clause 45 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 45 of the bill is agreed as amended. Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 46 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 46 of the bill be agreed.
Second?
It's being moved and seconded that clause 46 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that subclause 46 be amended in the following terms. Delete the words subclause 45.3 and substitute the word subsection 45.5.
Being moved and seconded that clause 46 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Section is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 47 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 48 of the bill be agreed. 47 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 47 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 48 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 48 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor, remain seated. Those opposing, the chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that subclause 48 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 4, delete the words subsection 45(1)B or C and substitute the words subsection 45(1)A or B.
Being moved and seconded that clause 48 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing would rise. The bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 49 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 49 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Section 49. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakwa.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that Section 49 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1, A, delete the words funds within the financial institution and substitute the words any funds maintained on its books by any individual, entity, or legal entity belong to an individual, entity, or legal entity. B, in paragraph B, delete the comma and substitute a semicolon. And C, insert immediately after paragraph B the following paragraph C. C is a listed entity. That's the wife.
Being moved and seconded that clause 49 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 49 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 50 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 50 of the bill be agreed. If the chair recognizes the member for Yamakwa.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 50 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1, insert immediately after the words Commissioner of Police the words or any police officer.
Being moved and seconded that clause 50 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. The chair recognizes the member for Angliston.
I just want to reiterate the observations of the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador as it relates to this provision and the reference to protective custody. Because when you look at further down at clause 54, it speaks to the rights of an offender, and it seems that they're referring to the person who is referred to in section 52 or 50 subsections 3. So they seem to be speaking about an offender, and so the reference to protective custody is a bit. So I think this has to be fine-tuned and clarified because there seems to be an inconsistency in the thinking in this clause.
Duly noted. We'll take a look at it. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 50 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 50 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 51 be agreed.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 51 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated.
Sorry.
As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise.
Sorry.
Chair recognizes the member for Angliston.
Thank you. On this issue again, Mr. Speaker, I want to again commend to the government as they have saw fit to do in clause 54, which we've not arrived at yet, but it speaks to an offender. I understand that's going to be amended, but a person who is a suspect or a convicted person, I don't know who they're referring to there, but it speaks specifically to having the right to an attorney, access to an attorney who may be a public defender. And in this regard, I want to commend to the government to have a consistent philosophical positioning in this legislation and to put, I'm recommending that where you see, it says 5.6, it speaks about an accurate and continuous record shall be kept in accordance with the schedule in respect of any detainee for the whole period of his detention, that we do a subclause 7, which is along similar lines to say that he or she is entitled to communicate without delay with an attorney at his expense, which is similar language in legislation in other jurisdictions when people have been detained for extended periods. So I want to commend that to the government.
Duly noted. Thanks.
Being moved and seconded that clause 51 of the bill be agreed. As many members in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 51 of the bill is agreed. Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chair, I do move that Clause 52 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 52 of the bill be agreed. As many members in favor, the Chair recognizes the member for Yamakro.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that Clause 52 be amended in the following terms. A, delete subclause 9 and renumber subclauses 10, 11, 12, and 13 as subclauses 9, 10, 11, and 12 respectively. And B, in the renumbered subclause 9, delete the words notwithstanding subclause 9, any, and substitute the words any.
It's being moved and seconded that Clause 52 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 52 of the bill is agreed as amended. Bamboo Town.
Mr. Chair, I do move that Clause 53 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 53 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor remain seated. Chair recognizes the member for Yamakro.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that Clause 53 be amended in the following terms. In A, subclause 2, insert immediately after the word premises the word specified in the warrant. And B, subclause 4, delete the word to where it first appears and substitute the word by. And 2, delete the word issued where it first appears and substitute the word executed.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 53 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 53 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that Clause 54 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 54 of the bill be agreed. As many members, the Chair recognizes the member for Yamakro.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that Clause 54 be amended in the following terms. Delete the head note and substitute rights of an accused person.
It's being moved and seconded that Clause 54 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 54 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Clause 55 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 55 of the bill be agreed. As many members are in favor will remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 55 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that Clause 56 be agreed.
Before a second, I see you were trying to get the attention of another member.
I thought I saw the member for St. Barnabas. The chair didn't recognize him. I don't know what he's doing sitting down. The chair was going through a motion. Thank you very much, Marathon. Chair now recognizes St. Barnabas.
Bring that whip up.
Second, Mr. Chair.
56.
It's being moved and seconded. Where are we?
That Clause 56.
It's being moved and seconded that Clause 56 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor remain seated. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakro.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that Clause 56 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1B, insert immediately before the words the competent authority the words where the person is not a Bahamian citizen and in subclause 3, insert immediately after the word person where it first appears the words serving a sentence.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 56 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 56 of the bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do move that Clauses 57 and 58 be agreed.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Being moved and seconded that Clause 57 and 58 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 57 and 57 of the bill is agreed. 58, the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that Clauses 59 be agreed.
Do I have a seconder? It's moved and seconded that clause 59 of the bill be agreed. As many members in favor, the chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 59 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 3, delete the words subsequently make and substitute the words prior to the expiration of the time limited by the order. Make a further.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 59 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 59 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 60 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 60 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 60 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 7, delete paragraph B and renumber paragraph C as paragraph B.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 60 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 60 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 61 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 61 of the bill be agreed. As many members in favor remain. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 61 be amended in the following terms. In subclause 1, delete the words of drug trafficking, money laundering, corruption, human trafficking, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, terrorist property or other any identified risk, and substitute the word of any terrorism offense as specified in the Proceeds of Crime Act 2018 or in this act.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 61 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 61 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 62 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 62 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 62 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 63 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 63 of the bill be agreed. As many members, the chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 63 be amended in the following terms. A, delete the words in the Bahamas, and B, delete the words either personally or.
Being moved and seconded that clause 63 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 63 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clauses 64 through 68 be agreed.
It's been moved and seconded that clause 64 through 68 be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 64 through 68 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 69 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 69, the chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move an amendment to clause 69 in the following terms. In subclause 1, delete the words a police officer or the central authority as defined under the manual Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Act, Chapter 98, and substitute the words the Commissioner of Police or the Director of Public Prosecution.
Being moved and seconded that clause 69 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 69 of the bill as amended is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clauses 70 through 75 be agreed.
It's being moved that clause 70 through 75 of the bill be agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 70 through 75 of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 76 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that 76 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move an amendment to clause 76 in the following terms. In paragraph C, delete the words or extradition proceedings.
It's being moved and seconded that Clause 76 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 76 of the bill is agreed as amended. 76.
Yeah.
76C. Yeah. So you sure you want to delete the word proceedings?
Or extradition proceedings.
That's extradition. Yeah.
Thank you.
Not proceedings.
Being moved and seconded that clause 76 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members are in favor of the amendment to clause, as many members that are in favor of clause 76 of the bill being agreed as amended will remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 76 of the bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 77 be agreed.
It's being moved and seconded that clause 77 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move the clause 77 be amended in the following terms. Delete the entire clause.
Being moved and seconded that clause 77 of the bill be amended as agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 77 of the bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 78 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 78 of the bill be, the chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 78 be amended in the following terms. Delete the entire clause.
Being moved and seconded that clause 78 of the bill be agreed as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated, those opposing will rise. Clause 78 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do move that clause 79 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 79 of the bill be, the chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Speaker, I rise and move that clause 79 be amended in the following terms. A. Renumber clause 79 as clause 77. B. Delete the words "the convention" as they appear immediately after the words 9th December 1999.
Being moved and seconded that clause 79 of the bill be amended as agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 79 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move that clause 80 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 80 of the bill be agreed. As many members, the chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Speaker, I rise. Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 80 be amended in the following terms. Renumber as clause 78.
Being moved and seconded that clause 80 of the bill be amended as agreed. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. Clause 80 of the bill is agreed as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do now move that clause 81 be agreed.
Being moved and seconded that clause 81 of the bill be agreed. The chair recognizes the member for Yamakra.
Mr. Chair, I rise and move that clause 81 be amended in the following terms. Renumber as clause 79.
Being moved and seconded that clause 81 of the bill be amended as agreed. Clause 81 of the bill is amended as agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do move that the schedule be agreed.
Second.
Being seconded that the schedule, it's being moved and seconded that the schedule of the bill be agreed.
27.
As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The schedule of the bill is agreed.
Mr. Chair, I do now move that the bill be agreed in its entirety as amended.
Second.
Being moved and seconded that the bill be agreed in its entirety as amended. As many members that are in favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The bill is amended, is agreed
In its entirety.
in its entirety as amended.
Mr. Chair, I do now move that the Speaker takes the chair.
It's being moved and seconded that the speaker now to take the chair. Many members, the chair recognizes the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yeah. Speak about this exercise just now. There were 79, this is a bill containing 79 clauses, started off at 81. And we spent all this time as parliamentarians cleaning up the mess of draftspersons and all the oversight of those who should have seen or known better before they brought the bill here. I mean, usually when we go into committee, it's usually to address concerns that may have arisen out of the debate, or to address any matter that may have come to the attention of the executive from consultation outside of the parliament. But clearly from what we observed here today, I mean, there's 43 clauses with any number of corrections and amendments to them. I get there communicated. It doesn't speak well of the process. Someone is falling down on it. Terrible. This is not the first one. I did not speak to it before. But I think some vigilance and accountability with respect to bills coming to Parliament, having to weigh down legislators in committee to endure complete exercise. I'm sure the mover is weighed down by all of these. So I invite the government to please take stock of what you're doing, and let's try to avoid this exercise that we've just gone through again. As I said, this is not the first time. We've not commented on it before, because we do know that draft persons have their challenges. And you have this, I don't know whether you still have, because you're all getting it, everybody has, but I think you all may still have those who drafted for us. But you know, you have catch it at cabinet level. Let's clean that up there, not let us clean it up here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes the member for Yamacraw.
From Kingston, Salvador, for his kind assistance here today. But a number of the bills I've listened to, Cat Island, Rumkey, and Salvador, he, perhaps more better than most, will understand the rigid legislative agenda that this government has had to go through, especially with the blacklisting. Not only having to tackle the proceeds of crime, the financial transaction reporting, and we have said it in this house before, that we're in the process communicating with other entities. We're also communicating with civil society to get things right. And sometimes, because it's changing so fast, we're having to make certain adjustments to the legislation. I want to publicly commend those persons at the legislative drafting department who spend long, arduous hours drafting these bills to come to this honorable place. This is where, and we've said even during our debates, when the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and Salvador suggested one of the bills, when we were to make communication with the insurance companies, right in this house, they were sending us recommendations, and on the spot, we made the changes to accommodate civil society. And that is what we've been doing. We've been engaging and trying our best to bring legislation that are contemporary. I want to commend them because there was very little objection today's bills today. And as a matter of fact, we were somewhat commended by Cat Allen when he says some of the objections that he had when he looked at the proposed amendments, they were taken care of. So we take his observations in stride, but what we will continue to do is have an open and frank cooperation with civil society and our international partners, and he knows who they are, to make sure that we produce laws that are for the good governance of the Bahamas. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
It's being moved and seconded that the Speaker now do take the chair. As many. In favor remain seated. Those opposing will rise. The Speaker will now take the chair.
Very good. I hope you're taking that. Very good. I am. Very good.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to report that the Committee of the Whole has gone through the bill, having made amendments thereto.
Honorable members, the Deputy Speaker and Chairman of Committee of the Whole House has reported that the Committee of the Whole House has gone through the bill, having made amendments thereto. Third reading and passing of the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I do move for third reading and passing of a bill for an act to criminalize terrorism, proliferations of weapons of mass destruction, the financing of terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, to provide for the detection, prevention, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of such activities, and the confiscation, forfeiture, and seizure of assets of those involved in such activities, and for related matters.
Honorable members, it's been moved and seconded that the following bill be read for a third time and pass. A bill for an act to criminalize terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, the financing of terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, to provide for the detention, prevention, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of such activities, and the confiscation, forfeiture, and seizure of assets of those involved in such activities and for related matters. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Order that the bill be read for a third time and passed.
A bill for an act to criminalize terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, financing of terrorism, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, to provide for the detection, prevention, prosecution, conviction, and punishment of such activities, and for the confiscation, forfeiture, and seizure of assets of those involved in such activities and for related matters.
Order that this bill do now pass, and the title thereof be declared to be the Anti-Terrorism Act 2018. For the third reading and passing of bills.
There are no more third readings, Mr. Speaker.
Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
Mr. Speaker, we have the concurrence of the opposition to both latest resolution and to seek to pass it today as well. We would have gone through the debate earlier when we passed the amendments to the Electricity Act, but we have had to come back and to clarify a few things in regards to the House. So I will go ahead and read the resolution. Whereas a resolution was inadvertently tabled and passed in the House of Assembly on the 23rd day of May 2018, the resolution, as laid out in the schedule hereto. Now, therefore, be it resolved and agreed that the resolution is hereby revoked. Whereas the Bahamas Electricity Corporation, BEC, a body corporate, continued pursuant to Section 8.2 of the Electricity Act 2015, the Act, which primary duties and functions of BEC have been transferred to the Bahamas Power and Light Company Limited, BPL, from the 29th day of January 2016 pursuant to the Electricity Act 2015, appointed day, transfer of function, notice 2016. And whereas the Act was amended by the Electricity Amendment Act 2018, and a bill for an act was laid in the House, the Electricity Amendment Number 2, Bill 2018, to further amend the Act to clarify that notwithstanding the transfer of powers and functions, BEC as a body corporate continues to have the power to borrow and meet its debt obligations. And whereas BEC entered into Roman numeral 1, a facility agreement dated the 2nd day of October 2009 in the maximum aggregate principal amount of $211 million US dollars, as further amended and restated on the 11th day of December 2014, and further amended and restated on the 8th day of March 2018, the US $211 million credit agreement between the Bank of the Bahamas Limited, Credit Suisse, acting through its Cayman Island branch, First Caribbean International Bank Bahamas Limited, Royal Bank Bahamas Limited, Scotia Bank Bahamas Limited, the National Insurance Board, and the lenders party thereto from time to time, the 211 million lenders, and Roman numeral 2, a facility agreement dated the 24th of August 2012, as further amended and restated on the 11th day of December 2014, and further amended and restated on the 8th day of March 2018 for the principal amount of 35 million US dollars, the 35 million credit agreement, and together with the 211 million credit agreement between BEC and First Caribbean International Bank Bahamas Limited. And whereas the government has provided, Roman numeral 1, a guaranteed date that the 2nd day of October 2009 to the 211 million lenders in respect of BEC's obligation under the 211 million agreement, and Roman numeral 2, agreement dated the 17th day of May 2013 to the 35 million lenders in respect of BEC's obligation under the 35 million credit agreement. And whereas pursuant to the terms of the respective credit agreements, the respective lenders of any lender may increase their commitments in any amount, not to exceed the difference between the total commitments of all the lenders under such respective credit agreement and outstanding existing advances under each respective credit agreement. And whereas Roman numeral 1, Credit Suisse AG, acting through its Cayman Island branch, proposes to increase its commitment under the 211 million credit agreement by US $36,925,000, and Roman numeral 2, First Caribbean International Bank Bahamas Limited proposes to increase its commitment under the 35 million credit agreement by $6,125,000, the increased commitments. And whereas 1, BEC proposes to accept the proposed increased commitments and to borrow the advances comprising the increased commitments on the applicable increased effective date. Roman numeral 2, it is a condition precedent to the making of advances comprising the increased commitments that the government confirms the continuance of the guarantees as herein provided. And whereas by virtue of Section 18 of the Financial Administration and Audit Act 2010, no loan shall be raised by the government, and no guarantees involved in a financial liability shall be binding upon the government unless entered into with the prior approval of the House of Assembly by resolution thereof. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this House approves and confirms the continuance of each of the guarantees which it confirms remain in effect and extend to all obligations of BEC as borrower under the respective credit agreements, including without limitations BEC's obligations in respect of the repayment of principal and payment of interest on the existing advances and additional advances compromising the increased commitments.
Thank you, Honorable. Is there a second? Second. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed.
We've agreed that.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
I readily accept it because we do not wish to stand in the way of the government trying to see their policy, folly they may be. Mr. Speaker, here again, this is again sleight of hand. And we keep saying, no lies don't last forever. There's nothing inadvertent about the resolution that was passed.
You gotta let our language stand.
And there's nothing inadvertent. And as I said, own up to it. Own up to either your incompetence or deliberate sleight of hand that cited for the purposes of continuing the narrative about the PLP and its last governance. Speaker, the old Arabic proverb, sometimes recited by Mr. Bush, fellas over the English version, right? That goes like, he who knows not, and knows not that he knows not, is a fool. And he could be shunned, man. He could avoid you. He who knows not and knows that he knows not, he's a student. So he'll be taught and he's teachable. He who knows and knows not, he knows. He's asleep. Let's wake him up. Let's wake him up. He who knows and knows that he knows is a wise man. Let's follow them. What I get from that Arabic proverb is that because I don't know, it's an Arabic proverb. Because I don't know, it don't mean I'm dumb, It don't mean I'm incompetent. It don't mean that. I know nothing about medicine. So I not pretend to be a doctor. I do not listen to doctor. I just stay, but at least I can have some comprehension if I go and sit with a doctor. I can understand I can be able to grasp what I call at least what he's trying to tell, what's imparting to me. I'll be his student because I know I don't know, and he can tell me, and I move away wiser. You see, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to show why I say sleight of hand. I can show why it's either incompetence or deception. Because I, on at least 3 separate occasions in this place, attempted to urge the minister responsible for BPM, urge the member from Eastman, Bahama, and Killarney, to please just try to understand what was left in place. The legislative regime, what was left in place. which was designed, first of all, to rescue BEC and put the supply of electricity, the new BPL, on a path that would, first of all, take away having to provide them with subvention, one, and two, remove the guarantee that was then existing by the government from it. The regime was set up in a way where BPL was formed to give it a new and clean balance sheet, so that thereafter you can move to the issuance of rate reduction bond. That too was legislated. That would have relieved the government to give it more headroom from having to guarantee the, first of all, there's the 211 million facility that we're now talking about. That would have gone by the wayside. You would have been able to raise an additional 500 million or thereabouts to take care of all the legacy debts, but you still have, all you're doing is you're just sinking BEC further and further. Now, I continue to ask, but no, instead of trying to understand, first of all, what and where BPL and BEC was headed, he went in there, blinded, and as usual, dismantled what you met, chucking away persons with the institutional knowledge who could at least get you to understand where we were going. Now, I'm not telling you had to buy and do what we were doing, but at the very least, before you dismantle what you met, you should at least get to understand what was happening and where you're going to avoid where you are today. Because you're in trouble. And you can continue to be in further trouble. This is but a drop in the bucket. Because you still have debts, legacy debts, that's probably another $200 million at BEC and BPL, which would have been wiped off had you continued on the path that you were headed. Now, let me say why I say, Mr. Speaker, that I cite of hand, deception or total incompetence. The first resolution that came here, no mention was made that you're going to get new money,
Say no mention was made.
that you were going to be getting new money. Just look at the resolution and cite of hand, because now that I read the resolution, I see the language more carefully. Because all you are saying is that we owe $200 million. We want you to confirm that we owe $211 million. And anything connected to that $211 million, allow us to guarantee. And all we thought we were guaranteeing is the same $211 million. And of course, I thought that was wrapped up in the, remember, for East Grand Bahamas, constant, they ain't borrowing no new money, we just restructuring loans. And this was put up as though you were restructuring the loan, right? But you're borrowing $42 million more. And he never said that when the first resolution was coming. Never said it. Why? Why didn't say it? So transparent, so accountable, so honest. Why didn't tell us, West Grand Bahamas, do you know they can borrow $42 million different, more? Were they? They didn't tell us nothing. And so now they come back now and tell us. And they didn't even know they went to Credit Suisse, getting $36,925 million from Credit Suisse, and $6 million. They got an additional $35 million. No, sorry, that was already had. So they're drawing $6,125 million from West Caribbean. And see, you see this kind of hand? But you have a legislative regime that's what, when I talk about responsible opposition, the member for Kalani, the member from East Grand Bahama, the member from Bamboo Town, they were right in here when we discussed those bills in extensio. But they weren't concerned about what we were doing. Just concerned about how they can throw as much mud at us, see what can stick, so they could win. If they sat down, listen, at least you could do all those things, you know. But understand that you have to prepare yourself as the next government. So when you got and you understood, then you know what you'll be doing. So now we are getting, so you're now increasing your guarantee. I know you're you're still trying to be cute with it. You're still saying, you're still trying to be cute. Let me show you being cute. You say now, Credit Suisse AT, acting through its Cayman Islands branches, proposes to increase its commitment under the 2011 million credit agreement by 36 million. Huh? $36.9 million. See, under the 211 million credit agreement. That's the agreement. But you know what I'm saying? How much more money you're getting from it so that's in the first resolution. So there's no inadvertence. It was purely just either incompetence or deception or just not having a plan, not knowing what you're doing. You know, and this wasn't planned. You all decided you all want to get rid of 200, 300 people in 200 or 300 persons from BPL, calling it voluntary package, and boy, what a package they get. I don't know, who negotiates before now? Look at the package. Boy, the union is dancing. They have a package there, Mr. Speaker, that you could volunteer. You're volunteering to separate yourself from BPL, right? They guaranteed a huge separation package. I think in some instances, 2 years or whatever. But guess what? If I go and I volunteer, and you say, well, no, you can't go. I still carry that benefit with me until I leave. If I leave 5 years from now, I can still carry that same benefit that you have now.
Mr. Speaker.
Right? So, Mr. Speaker, and so now, yeah. You want to say something?
You want
Yes.
a point of order?
Thanks. I thank the honourable member for yielding.
The chair recognizes the
Speaker,
honourable member for Bamboo Town.
My understanding, the substantive minister for DEC is not here, but my understanding, Mr. Speaker, is what we seek to do in this borrowing resolution is not what the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and Sansal is speaking to, that we're actually seeking to raise monies with the intent of separating persons from BPL. It is my understanding that this is a part of the programs that's going to be used towards the prepaid meter program, towards the new smart grid that we seek to implement, to really work on the infrastructural developments that is necessary for BPL to take BPL into the 21st century. And so even from what the member for Cat Island and Rumkey speaks to, the whole issue in terms of the amount. Initially when we came, it was not the government's intention of going beyond the 211 million that was already there. As a matter of fact, that is what was borrowed. The government only sought to go back, and the portions of the 211 million where we had space that would have been paid down, we would have borrowed that back up to that point. And that was my understanding with the resolution. It wasn't that we were seeking to do any new borrowing.
I'm glad you rested.
Chair recognizes the honourable member for Cat Island.
I'm glad you rested. rested on your understanding. But the facts will tell you that the 211 had been drawn down. And that's why they had to restate it a couple of times to ensure. That's why when they say restate it speaks to it right in the resolution. Yeah. When they say restate it, it means that we've reached that point, and the question is how are you going to meet your obligations under the facility agreement. So it was ready. Now, I say that these funds might be there to take care of those who are being separated. I didn't say might, and I say now might because of your understanding. So I posed the question. I think I saw somewhere from your minister or someone from BPL indicating that the separation package costs anywhere from $30 to $40 million. Where you can get that from? This is where it's coming from. This is where it's coming from. Because those matters of synergies for the smart meters, infrastructural upgrade, the way the system, the way the program we left in place, cash flow would have been able to feed that and deal with those issues. That was the plan. So this is new money to pay those people off. And guess what? Guess what the speaker? Guess what the speaker? And guess and then
Are you on the point of order, honorable member?
Because
State it.
the member for Cat Island and Rumpke in San Salvador is casting now his point of view and aspersions in the absence of the substantive minister. And he's going further. He's saying, no, you're saying that the $40 million is going somewhere, and you in fact don't know. You don't know. You don't know though. And so it is highly improper and unfair for you to do that in the absence of the substantive minister. You know, I sat and I listened to you. You went further. You went further. You said, and you whispered under your breath, you said something about a lie, right? That's what you said. It came out of your mouth. No, yeah, well, first of all, I will remind you that Lao Tzu said, he who does not know speaks, and judging from the length of time you spoke, you do not know much. So I would recommend that if you have evidence of what you're doing, you produce it before this honorable house right now. Of this lie, of this 40 million, you produce it now.
Chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island.
the lie I spoke about is right before the member. The lie is right before him. All he needs to do is take the time to read the first resolution, read now what is before him, and then tell me what is inadvertent between the two. So, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member. Honorable member, one thing I would say from the chair is the word lie.
Don't laugh, sir.
No, the word lie is rather unparliamentary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And so maybe you should choose another word.
Might I say, Mr. Speaker, I suggest, I say to you, Mr. Speaker, what I've said, I've read this, I've read, and they support me, and they might be ashamed of you right now. Mr. Speaker, you'll stay with him, man. Speaker, I read the resolution. And one only needs to read the final paragraph, see what that says. And if they want, let me just read it, because I know they don't read these things. The last paragraph, Mr. Speaker, now therefore be it resolved. This is what we passed. This is what we passed. That this House approves the government of the Commonwealth of Bahamas entering into a guarantee agreement with the banks guaranteeing the repayment of all monies that may become due and payable in respect of principal and interest by the Bahamas Electricity Corporation as borrower under the facility agreement entered into with banks for the sum of $211 million. That's what it says. repayment of all monies that may become due and payable. It doesn't speak to what now we're asking to guarantee the $36 million, $36.925 million. That's in addition to the 211. It don't speak to that. So what that is? Deception? What is it? Mr. Speaker?
Honorable member,
only asked. The question's just there.
honorable member, I would suggest that you
Right.
withdraw the word lie, because,
Lies withdrawn. Lies withdrawn.
right.
Lies withdrawn. But I'm saying, what is it? Sleight of hand? Mr. Speaker? All right, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I cast no aspersion on the minister. I'm just saying the resolution.
Honorable member for Bambutan, are you on a point of order?
Mr. Speaker.
You've been for lunch, man.
Mr. Speaker.
Uh,
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
I believe, Mr. Speaker, I would have spoken to what the member for Cat Island and Rumkey had spoken to. The first resolution we bought, again, what he just read, reiterated and signified and confirmed what I said, which was it was not the government's intention to go beyond the 211 million. We were seeking only to use the headroom in the borrowing. That was there, okay? Now, we have come back, realizing the situation within BEC and BPL to make that correction so that we can access those funds so that we would be able to do those things that the government of the Bahamas has agreed that it would do in terms of moving the infrastructure forward.
Speaker.
Chair recognizes the honorable member.
That does not apply.
Speaker, if he's correct in what he's saying, then we don't understand what the word inadvertently means. Because he starts off by telling us that what we passed was inadvertently tabled. It has nothing to do with their belief that the sum that was to be guaranteed, that there was headroom, in the $211 million facility. That's not what the resolution said. He's saying that what was passed by us was passed in the context that there was headroom in the $211 million facility. Well, that's not what he says here. He said it was inadvertently tabled. If that was the case, he could have just said it in the resolution. That's why I said to him earlier, here for it, let's be transparent. Tell us what is going on. Own up to what it is. And if the substantive minister had the answers, they should have waited till he come to bring the resolution. So I could have talked to him. Yeah, and that's why I could say what I want to say, Mr. Speaker. And that's what it is. It was a sleight of hand. A sleight of hand, Mr. Speaker. But so be it.
Again, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Chair recognizes the honorable member for Bamboo Town.
The substantive minister is not here. The substantive minister would have spoken to this issue when the member for Cat Island and Rumkey agreed the first time when we brought the resolution. And all I'm saying is the substantive minister is not here, and when he comes, he will be able to address the issue for us.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes. Are you finished, honorable member?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. All I'm saying is that here again, the government is exposed to what they're all about. Thank you.
Honorable members, it's been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed. Whereas the resolution was inadvertently tabled and passed in the House of Assembly on the 23rd day of May 2018, the resolution, as laid out in the schedule hereto, now therefore be it resolved and agreed that the resolution is hereby revoked. Whereas the Bahamas Electricity Corporation, BEC, a body corporate, continue pursuant to Section 8, subsection 2 of the Electricity Act 2015, the Act, which primary duties and functions of BEC have been transferred to Bahamas Power and Light Company Limited, BPL, from the 29th day of January 2016, pursuant to the Electricity Act 2015, appointed day, transfer of functions notice 2016. Now therefore be it resolved that this House approves and confirms the continuance of each of the guarantees which it confirms remain in effect and extend to all obligations of BEC as a borrower under the respective credit agreements, including, without limitation, BEC's obligation in respect of the repayment of the principal and payment of interest on the existing advances and additional advances comprising the increased commitments. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions?
There are none, Mr. Speaker.
Members' statements. Appointment of select committees.
None, Mr.
Instructions to select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angleston.
Thank you, Speaker. We wish to renew all notices in the name of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker.
The chair
Mr.
recognizes
Speaker,
the honorable member for Bamboo
I
Town.
wish to renew all matters in the name of the government, and I do move that the House do adjourn until January 11th. July. Thank you. July 11th at 10 a.m., 2018.
Is there a seconder? Second. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do adjourn through the 11th of July at 10 a.m. 2018. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. Final adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, I do now move that the House adjourns.
Second.
It has, honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House do adjourn to the 11th of July at 10 a.m. 2018. The business of this House now stands, correction. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those who oppose will stand. The House stands adjourned to the 11th of July at 10 a.m. 2018.